Hello and welcome to this repair tutorial, and today we're going to look at a Cambridge and the model number is 551P, and this is a Phono pre-amplifier stroke equalizer for a moving magnet type cartridge. So this is commonly used where the amplifier does not have an inbuilt either moving coil or moving magnet type circuit, and what you need is one of these units to take the direct connection from your turntable, and in turn it will provide a higher voltage output after the signal has been equalized, and then you can then connect that to your normal line inputs depending whichever one you choose. Now in terms of general specifications, power consumption is 5 watts and the gain at 1 kHz is 39 dB. Input impedance is 47 kiloohms, which is standard, and then nominal output is 300 millivolts. Total harmonic distortion is 20 Hz to 20 kHz, and this is 0.009%. And then for the RIAA curve accuracy, it is plus or minus 0.65 dB, 25 Hz to 20 kHz. And then dimensions, width, depth and height is 215 mm by 133 by 46. And then the weight of the preamplifier is 0.8 kilograms. Supply voltage is 12 volts AC, 500 milliamps, and this comes from an external power adapter. It's very important to make a note of this point because we'll come back to that in a moment, and it is by far the most common fault associated with the input power to this device. The overall construction is very good. It's all metal construction, which is extremely good when you look at it. But there was a predecessor to this, which was the 540 series, and that did not have a power on off button. With this unit, as you can see on the left hand side, you have a blue LED, and then you also have the on-off power. There is also another unit, which is the 651P. That's a more expensive unit, but you can also have, if you wish, not only a moving magnet type input, you can also have a moving coil as well, and then you also have a subsonic filter. I did make quite a detailed tutorial which covered all aspects of phono input type connections, both moving coil and moving magnet, and typical types of faults. And it also covers in detail what we mean by the RIAA curve, and it also describes the manufacturing of vinyl records, and as always, most common errors or faults that you would find with typical types of phono circuits. Now, what I'm showing you here is the rear of the preamplifier, and this is very, very important. I've drawn a circle around the input power. It should be 12 volts AC. The adapter that is provided by Cambridge Audio is 500 milliamps. Now at some point in time, and this happens commonly, there appears to be a disconnect between the original power supply, and maybe the owner operator mislaid it and they had the preamplifier in storage for a period of time, or maybe there was an issue with the original power adapter so they had to source a replacement. Commonly what happens, a 12 volt DC power adapter is sourced and then connected to the preamplifier. Now if that is done, and what I'm showing you here in this slide is the unit disassembled and it's just the outer case which gets removed, you can see on the right hand side where the power adapter plug connects in, and then you can also see the connection then for the audio. Now if a 12 volt DC power adapter is connected, as you can see here from the schematic, C1 will receive a reverse polarity. Now that's a major issue of course. What will happen is it will then begin to fail. The pressure inside of the capacitor will gradually start to increase, and then the point then is such that the capacitor will fail. What I'm showing you here is C1, and as you can see already it started to swell on the top, and this sort of crisscross that you see is a safety feature built into the capacitor, such that when the pressure starts to build it will reach a point where, let's term this as a rupture disc, will operate and it will release the excess pressure inside of the capacitor. When that takes place, sometimes what you'll find is that the pressure may be that substantial that it will actually blow off the top aluminium canister of the capacitor. And then when you look at the circuit board, you appear to be seeing what looks like aluminium foil and cardboard, and then the only thing that remains in the circuit board are the two terminals, and then normally the bottom of the capacitor, which is just a rubber seal. What I've also done as well is I've included in the description for this video quite a detailed explanation about capacitor technology, different types of capacitors used in audio circuits, and again typical types of faults. So when you have this situation, and what you can see now is using the ESR meter, I've removed C1 and I'm just testing it. So you can see the ESR, or equivalent series resistance, is still relatively low at 0.21 ohms. But this capacitor now has gone low in value. So it should be 220 microfarads with a voltage rating of 50, but now we're down to 156 microfarads. In some cases what you'll find is that the capacitor will completely fail, as I said, and then if you put it onto the ESR meter you would find that it was open circuit. What I've also done here is I've taken out circuit C2. So not as low as the previous capacitor, probably within tolerance just about, so this is about 198. And then you can see that the ESR is effectively 0 ohms. So it hasn't really deteriorated from manufacturer's spec. So in this case, all I've done is I've just replaced both of the capacitors. And then what I've done here and what I'm showing you is that there is a circle around the two electrolytic capacitors. So these are Panasonic capacitors that have been fitted. They're slightly lower profile than the originals. And then, as I said, you've then got the power adapter connected. The important thing that once you've done that work is just to verify the plus and minus 18 volt supply rails. So what you can see is just in front of the capacitors, you have this sort of metal casing around it. And that also forms as a heatsink. So what they've done is they bolted onto there two voltage regulators. One, as I said, is 18 volts plus, and then the other one is negative 18 volts. What you should do is just get your multimeter and measure the output voltage of both of those regulators. And all being well, you should find that you have your plus and minus 18 volt supply. And then that verifies that you have the correct voltage for the Phono pre-amplifier to be working correctly. As with many tutorials, even though this is a preamp, remember that you still have stress points on that circuit board where you physically connect both the input coming in from your turntable, you then have your connections back to your amplifier, and then your power input socket. So you need to turn the unit over and just inspect all of the solder joints just to make sure that none of them are cracked. And then also as well, just scan over as well, particularly in the area where you see the voltage regulators, just to verify that you don't have any issue associated with heat and then the breakdown of those solder joints. And then it's a simple matter of just running the unit on test. There is no adjustments to be made, and then just verify that you have the correct audio level for both left and right channels, and then also as well that the unit is operating correctly. And then here what I'm showing you is just the capacitors that have been removed, the failed ones. And then in terms of putting the unit on test, you can see that the unit has now been reassembled, and this unit was returned back to the customer with a replacement power supply. I just provide a generic one again, which is 12 volts AC, 1 amp, so effectively doubling what was the original current for the adapter that was supplied by Cambridge Audio. So not a detailed tutorial, not very complicated, but a common error or common fault that you will find for yourselves. And as always, if you have any questions or you need any assistance, email audioamplifierservicing@aol.com and I'll be more than happy to come back to you and provide any guidance or support that you may require. So until the next time, I wish you all the very best. Cheers and bye-bye.